One of the most important aspects of the learning progression method is the notion of growth over time. How do we guide students toward the end result without resorting to punitive measures? We encourage progress or consistent forward movement. We set out a long-term goal, then we break it down into smaller, achievable steps. Based on research in the fields of cognitive load and executive function, we can respectfully ask students to push one additional step forward at a time without worrying about a deadline or comparing to other students. We can tailor it to the type of course as well as to individual needs. Recall that a target level is the benchmark that students are expected to reach by the end of the unit, usually identified as a specific step on the rubric, beginning, developing, etc. In order to move students gradually from one level to another, we actually block out and don't let them view higher levels of achievement. Before the start of the year, we identify our goals for the class, and I backwards plan to set targets for each learning progression for each unit, with the goal of getting all students to a previously identified level of performance by the end of the year. Instead of presenting students with the entire learning progression for creating explanations as shown here, we might show them only not enough evidence and beginning in September. We might open up developing in October and proficient in December if the class is ready. In some courses, we may never open up advanced for the class, although certain individuals who may be ready can be coached to get there. For each class, I lay out a path that will bring students to success in the 10 practices. And I want to explain how I do that. The 10 practices are across the top and the units are down the left. The achievement levels required for success greatly depends on how much time it will take for the class to master the skills at each subsequent level. You can only push so hard. Students need time to assimilate new skills before building on them. So, in the class shown, I'm showing the progress of an ideal student who is steadily working to achieve mastery in physics. If by the end of the year they acquire 7 proficients and 3 advanced, no matter in what practices, that will earn them an A. So if they meet the target levels in each unit over the course of the year, I will bring them there. I map it out, trying not to overwhelm students with too much to focus on at once. In each unit, they maintain and solidify their progress in some practices and push themselves to grow in 4 others. Here's Unit 2, then Unit 3, Unit 4, Unit 5, and lastly Unit 6. Now, not all students will keep up. It isn't reasonable to think that all students in every class will be able to or will even want to do what's required to earn an A or an A+. Some students just have other priorities, and that's completely understandable, but they can if they're willing to do the practice and can meet the targets for each unit. So why not just show students expert level from September? Research about cognitive load and executive function tells us that students need to keep the relevant learning to discrete chunks, reducing distractors and providing time to assimilate new skills before moving on to more complexity. So we think of each level as a stepping stone and a jumping off point for the next level. If the student is fully grounded in beginning level skills, then they're ready to work on developing level skills. By keeping each step attainable, we aim to reduce student anxiety and stress. I get to be the coach, and students can engage in conversations about their progress without harsh judgment nor empty compliments. It's just about what you can do next to improve on very specific skills. So I can say, you included several relevant vocabulary words in your response. To move on to proficient, all you need to do is define those terms so that I know that you know what they mean. So what happens if you don't meet a target level? Nothing. Because when you're asking that question, you mean, what happens to my grade? Of course, if you miss a target level, you and I are going to have a conversation, especially if you are frustrated, confused, or concerned about why you are struggling. Sometimes it's a simple oversight, but other times we may need to meet regularly to get in some extra practice sessions together and get some guidance. You will continue to practice throughout the next unit, and we will reassess between 5 and 8 weeks later, depending on the unit length. What happens if you backtrack? Same response, nothing. Because when you're asking me that question, what you really mean is what happens to my grade. Of course, if you backtrack, you and I are going to have a conversation, especially if you are frustrated, confused, or concerned. Sometimes there's a clear reason, such as a prolonged absence from an illness, or you're involved in a sport that's taking up all your time. But other times we'll just meet to figure out what's going on with you. And again, you're just going to continue practicing throughout the next unit, and we're going to reassess and see where you're at 5 to 8 weeks later, depending on the unit length.